Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited about this web chat. I'm Jacqueline Luongo, the Director of Sales for PDO Max, and I'm here with my friends and dear colleagues, Jacqueline Rowe and Margaret Laura from WOW Consulting. Jacqueline is also a representative for PDO Max, so there's a wonderful synergy here. We've known each other for a long time and have been able to work on projects in the past. So I'm very excited to have you here on the web chat to talk about retailing. Jacqueline and Margaret, can you introduce yourselves to the audience so everyone can get to know you and why we're here?
Hi, yes. Thank you so much for having us, Jacqueline. And it's really fun. We've figured out the synergy of having the two Jacquelines on one call. So
Yes.
that'll be always interesting, right? We have worked together on many things, and our background with WOW or Wonders of Wellbeing is a lot of operational and management and a variety of spas. I know that a lot of people watching are more med spa focused, but there's, I think a lot of hybrids of day spas and med spas really developing. We've worked with a lot of independent practitioners and helping them develop their spas as well. So we're really excited just to share some of the things that we've learned in real life examples, and help you all with your business and growth.
Yeah. And I'm Margaret Laura, so happy to be here. After 25 plus, I like to say plus, I don't like to say the exact number, years in the wellness and well-being industry. This is really cool for me, getting, back into the med spa, flow of things. Back in the 90s, I'll date myself. I actually was the director of one of the first medical day spas in New York City. So that was when things were just starting to break through, and it was a really great time in the industry. So it's really fun to be here with both Jacquelines today and talk more about things.
Absolutely. And wonderful timing for us because PDO Max is entering into the retail world and being able to finally give our providers product to recommend for home care use, for elevating their maintenance and results at home. And so really with your expertise and of course, Jacqueline, the background that you have with PDO Max and knowing our product, I thought this would be a wonderful conversation to start on a web chat for retailing tips and helping to bridge that gap between the professional market and all of our providers being able to, of course, upgrade and we've been great at adding on Lumembi and our skin boosters and even Glow Pen. And so as we segue into having some of those options for home care use, uh, let's get started and first talk about the importance of retail in a med spa.
Yeah, I think it can be a little scary if you are, especially an independent practitioner, and you're really super focused on providing treatments. But there's a couple of really good reasons why it's important to have retail. One, the markup for retail is generally higher than your treatment margin. So you can increase your overall profit margin when you're adding some retail to the mix. So services, of course, rely heavily on those labor costs, and retail offers a much higher profit margin, usually 40 to 60%. So that's going to create that additional revenue stream. It's not adding extra service time. And typically you have a small space, or you can figure out a way to make it work with your retail so it's not taking up, an entire room. And it's really an extension of the service. I think that's really important to remember. It's not taking away from someone coming back to get a treatment. It's actually creating loyalty. There are real studies and real statistics on people purchasing retail and products and how that increases the chances that they will come back to you. So just really think about it like an extension. Your retail products are never going to be the strength of your professional products. There's a reason for that, because when you're doing a one-time treatment, you want the, really big impact. Your retail and your at-home care is really important. It's going to extend the results, enhance the results. but it's not going to give you that same impact if you're only doing that. So there is a real distinction there. So you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, that
I like
absolutely makes
to I
sense.
like to think, Jacqueline, about retail as sort of your secret weapon on your P&L, right? It's like that was that always that icing on the cake when you're like, are we going to hit our numbers? How did we do today? And then that retail number pops up and it just levels out your day, which is so nice financially speaking. But to Jacqueline's point, I love how it just is that extension and it adds that nice touch to the treatment and to the actual procedure experience.
Absolutely. And I'm really happy that we're able to now have that. And just to echo
Yeah.
what both of you have said, it isn't taking away from the professional treatment. It's elevating those results. I've been saying for years, 50% of the client success is, of course, what they're doing and their optimal skincare at home. And so that certainly makes so much sense. And the concentration of the PDRN and other ingredients from the professional treatment to retail is different. It's maintenance. And yeah, the other part to this as well, and to echo the loyalty conversation, we just had was we just did a webinar chat about memberships.
Mm.
And one of the biggest pieces that Ryan McCarthy brought up on the last web chat was now people are coming in once a month and they're under this membership umbrella. And in that program, then they are incentivized to purchase products, sometimes at an exclusive rate for the member. And
Mhm.
so this also really helps to support that because
Yeah.
it's encouraging that loyalty and to the brand, to the spa, to the treatment, to the provider. So it becomes a win-win and we're just setting it up for success even further by doing that.
Yeah.
I agree.
Absolutely.
It's an extension of your care for your guest. It's not just like, thank you so much, we're done today, and good luck. You're
Right.
taking time to really thoughtfully serve them. Jacqueline and I have a favorite mantra. We say, serving is selling, and selling is
Mhm.
serving. When you're
Yeah.
serving someone, and we all have a heart to serve, that's why we're in this industry, you're going to organically sell them something and vice versa.
Yeah.
And I think recommending a thoughtful retail addition to their procedure is a really nice way to show that client or that patient that you care about them and you care what happens at home and you want them to do the best that they can do for their entire body, skin, wellness, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. And I
Yeah.
feel like it's a complete treatment when someone is consulting with you. And I know I've experienced a treatment, and if I didn't have someone recommend product, it didn't feel like a full experience because why didn't they take the time to
Yeah.
say, hey, where your concerns were? This is what I might recommend for that pigmentation or for these fine lines or hydration, whatever it might be. So that certainly makes so much sense as a full experience, but also that we are selling through educating,
Yes.
from the provider standpoint, or even at the front desk when someone is getting, checked out and talking about everything that's offered within the skincare brand that they're recommending or treatment plan. It's all about education instead of being pushy. And we're going to get to that at some point in the conversation too. So let's talk about how we incorporate retail into the marketing strategy.
Yeah, marketing is one of my favorite things, and it can be such a scary word. And at the same time, people hear marketing and they're like, it's a waste of time. But marketing is so many things. I think people think marketing, social media. That's not everything. Marketing is truly your brand, your identity, the experience, not just, it's about the sale. It's literally encompasses everything. You can't have a business without your marketing strategy, right? Some of the ways that you can really leverage retail in your marketing strategy would be your digital marketing, of course, your social media. There's so much content that you can pull from the education about the product. So again, it doesn't mean I've got to sell these products on my Instagram or Facebook. You can. There are ways that you can create those like Instagram shops, things like that. But it's really not about that. Where you're using it is you're creating content that is increasing awareness and showing that you are educated and a leader in that, kind of in that type of treatment or whatever the, ingredient buzzword is going around, things like that. So like PDRN, that's just such a huge trend right now. And so if you're able to speak about it and have organic content, and again, it's not just about closing a sale, you're providing something, you're giving something out, to people, and that's what they appreciate about it. You can use it in events. Of course, like it's always a great thing to do goodie bags. I think, just a random little suggestion. I've done a lot of sample bars for events because oftentimes we ask a lot of vendors, hey, can I have like little samples of things? We put together a bag for everybody, and that's nice. However, very often people pick up those bags they don't need or want, and then they don't use those samples, which does nothing for you. So doing a sample bar, I actually love because they can really learn about the products, and then they can create their own takeaway, swag bag, goodie bag, whatever you want to call it. So maybe think about doing something like that where it's still engaging. They're not just leaving with a bag full of stuff that they don't know how to use. Another way, we really encourage you to use it, and going back to what Jacqueline was saying about memberships, packages, loyalty programs, memberships, it's just another component to kind of create variety in what you're offering as benefits. I think around maybe certain holidays sometimes, or certain events, life events, conditions. So example, it could be a package that's for someone that has sensitive and rosacea, type skin, or they have hyperpigmentation and they want brightening. So it can include a service and, product that they're going to use at home.
Yeah.
So you can really give a full package so you know that they're going to get the best results. And you're incorporating your retail in there. And again, remember, you have a much higher margin on your retail. So you're really adding a lot of value to a package or a membership. Again, say it's a pre-wedding, like a 6-month membership. And it's, here's the whole treatment plan. You get X number of treatments. You're going to have this take-home product. People really love to, and they're more likely to commit to something like that when they really know what the end result is, for. Like it has a very specific purpose, and not just talking about the device you're using, right? Or the ingredient. It really talks about the experience and the benefits of it. The products can really speak to that same benefit or purpose. I mean, there are just countless more ways. We're definitely going to be talking more about this with the webinar that's upcoming. And I know Jacqueline will share more info on that, but there are a million ways you can really work this in. You just have to really be strategic and think it through. And again, not just like throw products at people because they'll get overwhelmed. So.
Makes sense. And we've even done some events successfully within PDO Max, and now all I can think of is I cannot wait until we have sampling and product to be able to educate the client and patient to go home with, just again to elevate those results. It is such a win-win in that sense. And the three of us have had numerous conversations about leaning on your vendor and knowing what to ask for. And I love that you brought that up, Jacqueline, because it can be really customized and be able to make it an experience that isn't just for everyone. And I love that. And I think it is much more impactful for sure.
And I think when it comes to marketing and sampling, there's a real art to it. And I know we have this on the webinar topic, and it's one of my favorite. For years, you had these boxes of samples that would arrive, and no one really knew how to leverage them. And I can't wait to dive into that more when we have the webinar. But we have some real strong opinions on how to really take those samples and not lead with a sample. Don't display your samples. All these really great tips and tricks to help you leverage those marketing assets that are being provided. I love, Jacqueline, what do you say? You always say, just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. So just because you do receive all of stuff,
Yeah.
doesn't mean you have to put it all out, put it on display, make it
Mhm.
trick or treat. There's real strategic ways to help leverage not only your sales, but also the services you're providing through vendor support. So I can't wait to dive into that more as well.
Yeah.
And so now we obviously we've talked about the, really ROI on a retail product, which is brilliant, and how often, someone is purchasing a retail home care, whether it's a kit or, a 30 ml serum. Once you've sold that, now you just have that flow business. So, there is also that clever saying is retail doesn't call out sick. You are making up for that lost revenue sometimes through retail sales because you've planted the seed, made the sale, and now it's residual,
Yeah.
replenishment and revenue in that case. So with knowing it does increase revenue, how do we incorporate it into the practice and into it without it feeling pushy or like selling?
Yeah, I think that really where you're going to get this organic approach is through educating rather than selling, right? And we talked a little bit about that in the beginning of our call today. When providers and receptionists position products as solutions and they provide those layers of care and education, it adds this beautiful feel to the entire process. And again, we talked about that. When I agree with you, Jacqueline, when I would leave a service and I didn't get a retail recommendation sheet, I'd say, that person merely showed up for their job today. They could
Yes.
care less about my skin. They don't care about me as a person or a client. So really making the guest feel important and making them feel cared for and supported rather than sold to.
Mhm.
And I think that really just uses sort of this soft close technique. And again, there's some really great skills that we're going to go through in the webinar, very specific, how to make that personalized recommendation, how to build trust through education, the art of the soft close. That's where it all lives, right? And really how the training is a slightly different between your professional staff and your providers to your support team and your receptionist. It's that different synergy and approach. But paramount, paramount, make it seem like a solution, not being sold to. That's where it all starts.
Yeah, I totally
Absolutely.
agree. The education is huge. And I mean, to be honest, that's one of my favorite parts of this industry is all the training I've gotten. I'm like free training from all the reps.
I
A lot
love
of
it.
it are really transferable, the ingredients, the skill set, but making that recommendation when it's really thoughtful, it's very apparent. People know when you're making a recommendation because if you're educating them as to why, they know it's coming from a place of care and wanting to provide a result instead of just here's your list of stuff. Buy it, don't buy it. What do I care? Like that's gonna be how it feels if you're not educating them. And there's also, like Margaret said, there's a real art to it. The first step is being confident enough and educating yourself because look, you got to put the work in. You've got to learn about the product. You got to do your research so that you feel confident enough to really speak to it and recommend it because you want to know that what you're telling people is true, right? So there's some work you got to put into it as well. But then on the flip side of that is when your client or your patient is unsure or they say no or they have some objection to what you're recommending, sometimes you have to very kind of gracefully overcome those objectives so it doesn't feel like an argument, but they're not going to say yes immediately every time. You have to really understand what are the reasons why someone might be discouraged. Maybe it's something that they read online that's misleading. So think about those objections at the same time and how you can really, again, educate, give answers to those things, support them so that they feel confident in ultimately what is their decision. That's definitely you got to practice. You've got to get out there and feel a little awkward sometimes. But if you're really having a genuine conversation with people, they'll know it. And it's okay if you don't have an answer for every single thing every time. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like just what you said, you nailed it. Sales or training that we get from other reps and manufacturers and companies, of everything we expose ourselves to, it all can be very relevant. So even just like B2B, we are doing discovery. We're asking these questions to find out information so we can, Margaret, find the solution or concern to be able to fill in and create that just problem solving and bridge that gap, like you said, but also that it's educating through that. And that's really where I think if we are not asking the right questions or talking enough, two ears, and one mouth, and I know that's very cliche, but I do believe in that. I feel like the more we're listening and we're banking that information, that then we can create a treatment plan for what they want to do when they're in service, and then what they is best for home care. And that also brings me to how PDO Max and other vendors really having assets to be able to support the provider or even front desk, receptionist, to be able to execute this in a strategic way, professional, polished way, whether it is home care sheets or, digital, a lot of digital pieces that help you close that sale, really leaning into that and utilizing all of those support tools and asking for them. If you haven't been provided them from, the brands that you work with, ask for them. They probably exist, or a support tool could be created to make that a smooth process and, just close that circle, make it that full experience. And the other, to go into a little bit more detail, because this does come up a lot, for us, when we're just doing training, is how do we train and position recommending home care or even treatment plans from a provider to a receptionist? What is the difference in the way that, you feel it's effective to kind of train and get everybody ready to launch a brand, to launch product?
We really, it's a great question. There's not a one size fits all for training, right? Just like there's not a one size fits all approach when you are making these recommendations to your client. What we really kind of have a little fun with this, and we understand that the provider is the educator, right? During that treatment, that procedure, the education starts immediately. It's done through consultative sales skills, which again is the basis for all of this. And we'll talk more about that in the webinar. But then we look at the receptionist as the influencer. They're the one that's going to influence that sale and help close it. So start that education in your treatment room, and then it closes with the influence of the receptionist. I can't tell you how many times, I'm sure it happened to all of us, where I complain when I don't get recommendations, but the other thing I don't like is when I get a recommendation that is out of left field. I'm like, what the heck is this? The receptionist is like, here's the product Jane recommended for you. I'm like, well, what is this? We didn't talk about this. I have no idea what it is. So that conversation needs to start through education during your procedure time. Then the closer, which is the influencer of the reception team, they can really influence closing that sale. And back to your point, Jacqueline, about the assets from PDO Max and different vendors, you have to look at your training two-prong as well. It's not just enough to provide thorough education on the product. you have to provide thorough education on the sales tools. Like you said, the home care guide, whatever you're using to support that sale, role play through it, talk through it, practice it, because that's really going to create that frictionless, seamless flow between the procedure and the checkout.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
absolutely.
I know some people, I'm sure, are probably thinking, okay, well, I don't have a receptionist, so how do I close the sale? You
Yeah.
definitely can still do that too. So indies, don't panic.
Yeah. Great point.
There's the importance is there's a way to do it without overwhelming people. And there's a great balance between the sort of technical information and the sort of experience or emotional information. Like, this is what it's going to do for you. This is how it should feel. Because oftentimes, like with our skin, especially our face, it's a very emotional experience. So you have to be prepared as a provider. And you learn this really when you're in school, right? You learn about that sort of bedside manner. It's about providing the education, that more technical, like, here's how it works, but also taking into consideration someone's feelings about what's happening and what's going to happen when they leave there. And being really in tune with that. So I think that's emotional intelligence is super important as well. Um, and, leverage your merchandising. That's super important as well.
Yeah.
I it's honestly kind of funny, and I just laugh at myself when I have done this over the years. Clutter and merchandising is such a pet peeve for me. And so every time I would walk in to work, I would go around, I would just do a lap and straighten things, shuffle them, move them. Again, we're going to give you some really super useful tips for that. But again, there's a balance, displaying your hero products where they're really central and a focal point. Also avoiding overstocking. So I call it's like the grocery store method. You don't need your shelves. And I see this so often, which is why I say this. It looks like a grocery store. And what happens is, because you have maybe a few brands, all the packaging looks the same. So I'm just looking at a wall of little boxes. I don't know what's what. It is not really an inviting experience to just go through a wall of stuff. It looks very intimidating for people. So there's a balance between having things conveniently accessible and displaying them in a way that is going to attract the eye. Please consider rotating and reducing the amount of paper that you have around, the signs, the banners. It's too much. It really is distracting. There's sometimes a place for it. I think oftentimes that's events, or, again, if you have an area where you're doing, a specific product that you just launched or whatever it is, focus on that. But having just a bunch of banners and, cardboard signs everywhere, it really just doesn't create an experience that encourages people to purchase. It just doesn't.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I love a good featured table or product pick. I think that that's where you can highlight, and that's brilliant. When I envision PDO Max on the shelves, it's very minimalist. There's what it is, what it's going to do, what brand it is, and then it's simple. And it just, everything that we're talking about is, doing it in a way that it's quick information and you understand what the product is, what it's going to do. And then if you do have a team, it's wonderful because everybody should be on the same page of what that product is and what it does. And if you can have a receptionist kind of close that and do that, the process is very smooth as you practice, like you said, Margaret. So it does take time, and it takes process of elimination, I think, too. And what
Yeah.
works for your team, your language, all of that.
Yeah.
I think the key is a frictionless experience. So whether that's, you alone as an independent, or you're passing, this closing on to a team member, it's about not distracting them too much in the boutique. having that product available so you can get it in their hand and create ownership before they close out the sale. You just want to really make sure all those touch points that we'll review are going to be in place. And that just creates this beautiful flow that leads to closing the sale.
You don't want to make them work for it. If you've got to make them work,
Great point.
the sale, you're high chance you're going to lose them. I mean, not everybody's like me, and probably you guys too, where I'm going to case the entire store. I don't care what you tell me to buy.
Right, right, right.
Look for more stuff to buy. And 90% of the time, if you have a lip product, I'm just going to buy it. So I'm a sucker, but not everybody's that way. And again, you create a roadblock for them, or you make it to where they have to look for something or ask something. You're just creating an opportunity for them to just leave and not follow through. So definitely keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Those are great points. We could talk about this for a long time, and I'm quite glad that we have, you know, a webinar that we can dig deeper into all of this and so much more. I'm quite excited about that. I'm excited about the launch for PDO Max and retail product. I appreciate your support as we grow into it and always. So thank you so much. I can't wait for June, and we'll see you then.
Yes.
See you then.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.